Hello, Drew here, mathematics tutor on Wyzant. I cover many topics, but today we're going to be talking about the domain of multivariable functions. So the problem that was given to us, we were given three functions, f, g, and h, and we were given their domains here, which I've written here. And we're asked to find the domain of this multivariable function, which is made up of these functions here. So when you're finding the domain of a multivariable function, or really any function, not just this one, what you're asking is for what input values is this function defined, right? So in this case, what we'd be asking in this particular case is when I plug in x and y, right, what values of x and y when I plug it in will give me a defined value for this capital F of x, y. So the best way to approach this is to kind of do it one piece at a time. So we're going to pay attention to this little chunk right here. We have two functions here, one in terms of x and one in terms of y. Multiplied by each other, it can seem a little complicated, but it is actually not as complicated as it looks. So what we have here is x. We have now, we have the domain of g, which was given as 0, pi. And we have the domain of h, which was given as -1, 1. Now, if we think about this as a little unit, a little kind of clump there, this is going to it's going to take in input values of x and y and give something out, right? So when we put these values in, since we defined g in terms of x and h in terms of y, the output values are going to be limited to that domain. So the x's, so we're going to have a combination of x, y inputs, right? And the x's are going to be limited to this domain, and the y's are going to be limited to this domain. So that's the domain of this particular little chunk. So then we move over here to this f of x. We're given this domain as -∞, 1. But here, over in this part, we've already said, hey, x cannot be outside of this interval. So when we are looking at this as a whole thing, we think to ourselves, x has to be in both of those domains. In other words, it has to be the intersection of those two domains. So the intersection of these two intervals is going to be 0. Pi is larger than 1, so this is going to end at 1, non-inclusive. That actually is it. So we've actually limited x and y here. Now, there's no other functions in terms of y, so that is the domain of y. So if we put this kind of more formally, the domain of f, the capital F, is x and y. Going to put in r squared, I'm assuming that the real numbers here, such that x is in this interval and y is in that interval. Now, I went through this kind of step by step and piece by piece to kind of explain what the thought process is for a lot of these. But generally speaking, if you have this multivariable function made up of other functions, with respect to x and y and whatnot, what you would essentially do is just find all the functions defined, with an x, put them all together with their domains, find the intersection of all those domains, and that is your x domain, and then take all the ones with the y's, find the intersection of those domains, and that is your domain for the y, and then you just put them together in terms of a coordinate system, and that gives you the domain there. All right, so I hope this helped. Thanks, and have a good one.